I preach to you in the name of one God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The lectionary is what we call the book that tells us what Gospels and what lessons to read every Sunday. And I am continually amazed at how appropriate the Gospel lessons are for different phases I'm going through in my life, or whatever issue may be on my mind that week. If I'm worried about social justice issues, I feel like the lectionary will give me just the right Gospel reading to lead me into the right path. And then today's Gospel is oddly appropriate because it's so disjointed. It's hard to follow, and lately I feel like my mind's been so very disjointed, and when I read this for the first time, I just didn't know what to make of it. All of a sudden, Jesus is leaving a synagogue, and he's going into Simon's mother-in-law's house, and she's sick with a fever, and then he lifts her up, and then it says the fever left her. Like the fever itself is a character leaving her body. Then she started serving them food. The end. No further explanation. Then Jesus goes out. He goes into the wilderness. And it says he's casting out demons. But he did not let the demons speak because the demons knew his name. The end. No other explanation. Why is this important? Why is it so essential that the demons knew Jesus' name? Then he goes into the wilderness, and the disciples, they go and get him and say, Jesus, your work's not done. Keep on healing, sending out demons, and preaching the gospel. And Jesus says, okay, we're going to go to some different towns. Like all of these little 2-verse stories seem to be not only not in conjunction, but going against each other. But the thing is, with the gospel according to Mark, you have to read the whole thing together. Because Mark is in a hurry. And Jesus in Mark is in a hurry too. He is on his way to the cross. And he doesn't have time to sit around and explain all of his deeds. He has a mission and he has a lot of work to do. And the little time that he has in Galilee and in Judea. And so, when we read the gospel according to Mark, we need to think about how much we're reading at a time and at what pace we're reading it to properly convey the mood he's trying to set. So if you want to read the Gospel of Mark correctly, take a really deep breath. Start in the very beginning and try to read the entire Gospel without taking another breath. Because he's in a hurry. And everything is happening one thing after another. But the thing is when you take the bigger picture and you start to look at themes and you start to look at different characters, you realize that they're actually quite deep. One thing that we see in the Gospel of Mark is that the disciples are fools. The only thing they're doing right, and they do it very well, is that they follow Jesus. But time and time again, they miss the point. They are the last ones to realize who Jesus is. They deny Jesus 3 times on his way to the cross, and they are not the ones to go to the tomb afterwards. And if you look at all the people on the fringes of the story, the people who don't seem important enough to have names, these are the ones that we should be paying attention to. These are the ones that get it. And in this little 2-verse story at the beginning of this gospel lesson, we hear about Simon's mother. Or excuse me, his mother-in-law, not even his mother. And she received grace. Jesus came into her house and lifted her up. And then the fever that might have been killing her immediately left her. And she immediately goes out and starts serving. And then this is this is not a coincidence. Serving food is a very important function in the New Testament. This is the action of a deacon, of ordaining ministry. We see in Acts that the very first deacons were charged with distributing food among all of the people. And Simon's mother-in-law appears to be the very first deacon, touched by grace and eager to give grace out to those in need, including Jesus and his disciples. And what does Jesus do after she does this? He goes out and he begins to serve the whole world. So we see that Simon's mother-in-law is indeed following Christ, even though she is on the fringes of this story. And so what does this say about our church here? What does this say about the Episcopal Church and all of our hierarchies and all of our good intentions and all of the ministries that we do? I spent 3 years in seminary preparing to be a minister, and I have every desire to follow Jesus. But we do not pretend that I'm perfect. I know I certainly don't. I will fail occasionally. I will miss the mark. I will fail to see Christ when I was meant to see Christ. And it seems to be the very nature of the church that we are not just one minister in a building. We are many, many, many ministers, all called, or rather compelled to by grace, to go out and do good and to follow Christ, even in the most discreet ways. I am not the one who makes all of the food for potlucks, or to send food to people who are grieving or ill. I am not the only person here who provides pastoral care. Most of this is happening from people who get little to no acclaim for doing it. It's you. It's all the people who work quietly, who work because they are compelled by the grace that they have received to do good. In the back of our Book of Common Prayer, there's the Catechism, which is a list of questions and answers meant for people preparing for baptism or confirmation. And one of the questions is, who are the ministers of the church? And the answer is short and it is simple. The ministers of the church are the laity, the deacons, the priests, and the bishops. It lists the laity as the first class of ministers here. And so what is your ministry? What grace have you received that is compelling you to go out in the world and do something? Some of you are on the altar guild. Others cook. Others go out and visit the lonely. Others teach, and others just show their love. And we should never make this place a place of contentment, where you can go and feel yourself being holy, and then just forget about it the rest of the week. This is a place where we can receive grace and love, and we can let that grace and love form us and shape us so we can give that much more to those in need.